Hey, beautiful human. Thanks for clicking on our conversation with Lindsey Stirling. Her Christmas album, Warmer in the Winter, is out right now. Check it out. It's really good. Our conversation covers everything. Her new album, her life, her music. It is her and a violin. Leave your honest feedback in the comment section below. We got a podcast. Link in the description below. And it'd be really cool if you subscribed. But if not, it's all good because we're not going to stop doing our thing. Enjoy.
Let's do this. Zach Sang Show.
Hello. It's okay.
I got stuck.
You're not so late.
You look so cool.
Thank you. I was trying really hard today.
Wow. Welcome. Let me get you set up over here.
Thank you.
Look at those.
Dan and Heather.
Are these fun?
Those are fantastic. Where did you get those?
I will look at the tech. I got them from Sam for the yeah. America's Got Talent thing, and I couldn't keep them. I'm like, I have to have these pants.
No, you
And
need to have those.
I
They
went and
look
found them.
fantastic.
They got a little Edward Scissorhands vibe.
A little bit.
A little bit. I like it.
If it's okay, can you be in this corner?
Oh yeah, I just wanted the cat.
Oh, you can have the cat.
Oh yeah, take the cat. Hold the cat.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. Okay.
And get comfortable. You can put your feet up.
You're so tiny on the couch.
Oh, hey there.
The only ask is if you want headphones, if you want, just make sure
Yeah.
the mic is near you. And
Okay.
this is whatever
Yeah,
you
give me
want.
this.
Yeah, hold it.
What
Give
is
me
this?
all of it.
Good
Okay.
vibes.
And
Hi.
just bring the mic
Hi,
as
I'm
close
Dan.
to your face as possible.
Give the what?
The mic.
Not the cat.
Oh.
You can bring the cat close too.
I'm
with the mic.
obsessed, obviously, with this cat head. Okay, there we go. And the mic is
Just
close to my face
yeah.
as possible.
And without, without blocking your
Okay.
your pretty face as well. Perfect.
All right.
And you'll hear. Yeah, when you put the headphones, you'll hear if you're far
Oh,
away.
hey
or not.
there.
Hi,
There you
Lindsey
are.
Stirling.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey, it's the Zach Sang Show. We got Heather, we got
Hi.
Dan, and we welcome to the studio, Lindsey
you.
Stirling.
Yes.
Yes.
Warmer in the Winter.
Yes.
That is the Christmas album being re-released this year. Buy it, stream it, put it into your life.
Yeah.
You look beautiful in this pink hair.
Oh, you know what? I was inspired by my own Christmas album because that was a wig that I wore on the shoot. And I was, doing all the promo and like signing all the albums. And I was like, I miss that pink wig. I'm going to color my hair pink.
Wow.
Looks good.
Look at you just inspiring yourself.
myself.
What a life you lead.
Oh, you're your own inspiration.
I felt really stupid as I said that. I was inspired by myself. It just came out.
You are a rocker chick, though. Like, you're here rocking these pants with these belts and these intense boots.
Right? It's like, who am I? I don't even know. As I walked in, you said I looked like a rock star. I was like, well, I tried really hard today. I don't just wake, this doesn't usually just happen
You don't
in
sleep
my
in that?
life. I don't sleep in this.
No.
I'm a sweatshirt and spandex pants kind of a girl. Yoga pants.
I feel you.
I wonder if rock stars try. Do you think so?
You know what? I mean, I have to try. So I would like to think that they have to try.
I think they do,
I think so. They pretend like it just happens,
but it doesn't.
it doesn't just happen. I thought about this. I was like, I want to walk in there looking like a rock star today.
You
And you
have
nailed
to-
it.
You did a great job.
Thank you. I wanted to impress you all.
That's why
Apparently, I
I put.
succeeded.
That's why I put this Christmas sweater on because I
You
wanted to
know
impress
what?
you.
I like it.
Thank you. I honestly thought you were gonna be a little more Christmassy. I thought we would have matched, but I love what you got going on.
Thank you. Next time I come, I don't care if it's spring or summer. I'm gonna surprise you with some Christmas.
Perfect.
I feel like there's a lot of facets or sides to who Lindsey Stirling is. Is that kind of right?
Definitely. Yeah.
Is there a different Lindsey Stirling on this cover with these really fancy antler things on, licking snow, than the Lindsey that's sitting here right now in all black and
Right.
rocking out?
Is that even the same girl? It's like you put on different wigs for a sense, in different times of your life. And I feel like all of them are just a different heightened version of me, but heightened in a different way. Like whether you're sitting on my couch at my house and we're like girl talking with my friends, or whether I'm on stage or an album cover or a music video, it's just I bring out a different side of myself a little stronger.
Got it.
But it's like, I don't know, the person that people see in interviews and the person that's on stage, it's all very, I feel like I try to stay very myself in all the areas of life. It's just, pull out the right suit for the occasion.
You're channeling different parts.
Exactly.
You fascinate me. I feel like I saw you at a radio room very briefly, and I jumped on you because I was like,
Not literally. Not literally, everybody.
physically, verbally,
Okay.
because I was like, I'm so fascinated. I have so many questions, and I was very overwhelming. But it's the truth because it's just you and a violin. And from there, you
Against
built
the world.
Literally, like you've built this entire empire in the face of a lot of people saying no, saying this can't be a thing, this isn't marketable, saying that there might not be something here. One of the comments from Sharon Osbourne when you were on America's Got Talent and you made it pretty far, she said, you need a group to fill up a stage in Vegas. But look at you now. Sister, you sell out tours, you have Dancing with the Stars under your belt, and it's still just been you and a violin.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the dream was always to be so much more than me and a violin. The violin and myself, we're at the center of it all. But, now it's so cool. I have this amazing team around me that brings these shows and these videos to life, whether it's like my amazing management or, like just my radio team that brought me here today, or like the dancers that I surround myself with on stage and the costumes. It was always meant to be so much more than me and just violin. However, that was always the foundation for everything, is that it is about the violin, and we can then take it to whatever world it wants to be in.
Were you surprised when people didn't understand that vision?
Not really. At first, I remember being a little, because when I first especially started writing original music, and I was really excited about it. I'm like, this is awesome. Why doesn't anyone see it yet? But then, I kind of took a step back because I was making these very unprofessional videos, the best I could afford at the time. Me dancing in my living room, trying to show like, this is what it's going to look like. But in my head, it was always so much bigger than that. It was what I do now. It was, I could see the stage, I could see the set pieces and the dancers and the costumes, but here I am in a pair of, trousers, like in Converse shoes in my living room. It's a little, and so taking a step back from it, once I realized nobody gets it, it was like, well, you can't just tell people, you have to show people. And these videos were not showcasing what I saw in my head. And then it became a chance of, okay, how do I show, not tell? And I started to build my brand the way I saw it in my head and stopped waiting for someone else to say, I believe in you, I'm going to help you. And I just started finding ways to do it myself.
Always the best way to go.
Always.
But hard to do. And it is overwhelming to even take that first step. Even though your first step is Lindsey Stomp, your YouTube channel, and that's what you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Shooting videos, dancing around in your trousers and Converse. But it's time to legitimize that and make that into more. What is that first step? What do you do? How do you build that up if it's just you and a violin?
Well, I stopped trying to think of, I need to just show people something. It was like, well, I need to show them what I see. And I couldn't afford huge stage pieces. I couldn't afford fancy productions. But, it's using what's around you. I lived in Utah at the time. Gorgeous scenery. Gorgeous mountains. I just went up the canyon from where I lived. And thank heavens for me, I had a film background. So I had a lot of friends that were into film and cinematographers that I had done projects with. I'd helped on their senior project shoots. And I was able to call them up and be like, I need someone to film me in the canyon. But also
tap those favors in.
Tapping those favors in. And anything, like I used to, trade offering to play on people's albums for studio time. I'd be like, hey, can I use your studio to record some violin music in trade for when you have someone that comes through and needs a violinist, or if you have a demo you need to make, you call me and I will put violins on your track. So trading skills. Also, I knew how to edit my own videos because I, again, went to film school. So I had some skills under my belt. And I definitely upped my costume game by finding things and sewing them myself. I mean, it's amazing what you can do when you don't know you can't do it.
Amen.
And I think that is the biggest blessing of my career, is that even though people were telling me like it's not possible, in my mind for some reason I knew I could. And if I had known then what I know now, I would have realized that it was impossible for me to be a successful violinist touring the world on my own dime without a record label, having stuff on radio. Like, that's impossible for a violinist. It's literally 1 in a billion chance. But because I didn't know it was impossible, I just started doing it. And that self-belief is the strongest thing I think I ever had working for me. And I'm so glad that I didn't know more, that I wasn't wiser in the industry.
That's awesome. It's the truth. You built your own opportunity, and you did it because, like you said, you didn't know that it couldn't happen. It's cool. Do you remember the first time you touched a violin or realized a violin was even an instrument?
Yes, I have these memories of, being really young, and my parents loved classical music. And so sometimes they would take us to these like orchestra concerts in the park. Like we lived in San Diego and, Orange County, but we would go to these little orchestra concerts, and I remember staring at the violinists, and they would always get the solos, and I thought it was so magical when the first chair violinist would stand up and play, this magical wooden instrument, and I just begged for lessons. And I vaguely, I guess, remember my first lesson. I remember holding the violin and being so excited about this little tiny thing that I could make noise on, and that it drove my sister nuts. And that was probably half my motivation to practice, was that my older sister hated it.
I read online that you were taking half lessons because your parents
Yes.
couldn't afford a full one.
Yeah, my parents couldn't. We really struggled financially when I was a child, but my mom and dad were like, "This is obviously really important to her. What parent doesn't dream for their child to beg for violin lessons?
right.
She actually wants to play." And so they made a lot of sacrifices, and they were searching for someone they could afford, and all the lessons were just far too expensive. So my mom found this college student that was starting to teach lessons, and she was like, "Look, I can afford 15 minutes a week." And they all said a child needs at least 30 minutes a week, or it will not set in. And this one college student was like, "Heck, I'll teach your kid for 15 minutes a week. Why not?" And it stuck.
Yeah.
What was it though? Why the violin? What fueled that attachment?
It's funny. I begged for violin lessons and dance lessons.
Which
And
look at you now.
And I know I finally found the two together.
Right.
But like as a kid, my parents obviously couldn't afford both, so they took me to a violin lesson, and then they took me to a dance class. And I think I was so intimidated by the dance class had all these other little girls in it, and they all had these perfect tutus, and I didn't. Or these perfect little dance dresses. And I just remember feeling so much like I don't know where I fit in here, and they all know what to do. And I was so overwhelmed by it that I was like, I'm going to do that other thing. That I'm going to play the violin. I think it was just by being intimidated that I was, and also I got to take the violin home with me, which was fun. And so, I'm very grateful that I first learned. I played violin since I was 6. I didn't start to dance till I was like 23. And I'm really glad that I chose the violin first, because I don't think I ever would have been able to teach myself the violin at 23.
No way.
It just wouldn't have happened. Yeah.
Were there moments within your relationship with the violin where you didn't want to practice? You were done with it? Were your parents there forcing you to keep it going? Or was it just yourself motivating you?
Definitely my parents helped, because the novelty of it for sure wore off. After I've had it for a while and I've been squawking away at it for a while, all of a sudden it's like, well, everybody else is playing. I don't want to practice this thing anymore. But I was always driven enough that with encouragement from my parents, it was never like, you will practice that thing. It was always just, at one point I actually did want to quit when I was in junior high, and I just didn't like it anymore. And my mom was like, "Look, I've paid for lessons for you since you were 6. Please make it to the end of the year." She's like, "Just get through this year, and if in 4 months you still want to quit, you can quit." She's like, "But for me, can you just put in 4 more months?" And by the time the end of the year rolled around, I had made it through that slump. And I think that's what it is things aren't always fun. And sometimes you go through times when you don't necessarily want to do it. But at the end of the day, it was something that was a piece of me. It was something that I enjoyed. And I just had to get through my slump. And I'm really grateful for parents that kind of pushed me through those little slumps.
Even after that, were there moments where you didn't want to keep going?
Yeah, there were, other little peaks and valleys of it. And for sure, the biggest one was probably when I went to college and I was about to study music in college. I was going to be a performance music major at BYU. And right when I applied for college, got accepted into the program, auditioned and everything, I suddenly was like, I don't actually like this anymore. I've played my whole life. And it was really sad to me, because the violin was a part of my identity. It was something that had always been a piece of me since I was 6 years old. And suddenly I realized I actually don't like this. I don't even enjoy it. And so I decided not to study music. I ended up going into film. But I decided, rather than quitting, I was like, I need to find my passion again for this. What is it about this that I don't like? And I realized I've been playing this thing the way it's been played for hundreds of years. I've been playing music that was written on sheets hundreds of years ago and playing it the way that I'm told to play it. There was pretty much zero creativity in it for me. And I'm such a creative person, and I thrive off of being able to express myself, not what is on a page, but express myself. And so that's when I started to write music for really for the first time. And I started to try out all these different styles. I'd go to shows, and I would, after the show, in these little clubs, I'd ask the band, hey, I'm a violinist. If you ever need a violinist, but call me. And I started getting people to call me, and I played all different types of music, and it reinvigorated my passion again for the violin.
So, which is amazing, right? You changed the definition of what a violin has been meant for, right? So that's how you kept it fresh. You just changed the purpose of an instrument, or you found new purposes for the violin.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's a place for all types of music. I love classical music. It was just at that time, it wasn't fulfilling me anymore, and I had to make the violin fit me rather than make me fit the violin, I guess.
Who was your first big collaboration?
My first big collaboration. Oh, maybe it might have been Owl City, which I was so stoked about getting to, like, first I was brought into the room to write with him. I was so nervous. And then we did a song, Beautiful Times, together.
But was this pre or post Fireflies for them?
This was post Fireflies.
Oh, they were hotter than ever.
So he was hot stuff. Yes. I mean, and I had played that song on repeat in my college apartment. So I was so excited when I was like, wait, he wants to work with me?
So when you go into that studio, do you know what song you're going to add violins to, or do you go in clean slate?
We went in clean slate and we wrote a song. However, the song we wrote actually didn't make his album, so I was kind of bummed. But then he came back to me with a song. He's like, I would really still like you on my album. So, like, there's space in this one. Do you want to write violin to it? So then I, took another stab at it, wrote to the song that he loved, and it ended up on the album.
Awesome.
When you start the process of doing something like that, how do you break down a song, right? Before you, like, what is your process like before you just write a piece of violin for it?
Yeah. Are you talking about when I'm writing for myself or when I'm writing for someone else?
Say for this, right? The Owl City record. You hear the record, you break it down in your head before you write? Like, what does that look like to you?
I love improvising. And so improvisation is usually a big way I write in that way, where I'll take the song. They've kind of left usually little holes for me, and I will find those little holes musically or parts where I think that harmony would be really beautiful. And I'll just start to, like, weave the violin to it, almost like it's a little thread of color in a lovely Christmas sweater.
Thank you.
And, and the violin is just supposed to be this little thing that ties the whole song together and, like, has its shining moments, and other times it's just supportive.
Is that the purpose of a violin, no matter the body of music?
I guess so. It's such a connective instrument. Like, and I feel like it sings the most when it just kind of winds its way. Like, and certain melodies don't work well on a violin. Like, a lot of melodies that you would sing, when I try to do, like, if people ask me to do a cover of something, some melodies, I'm like, that just doesn't sing on a violin, because the violin is such a connective instrument and it's so much about winding melodies. It doesn't work if it's really like a lot of songs, like pop songs today, don't work well for violin. They can be played on it, but I don't think it makes the violin sing, personally.
Radioactive, that's a huge cover you do with Pentatonics.
Yes.
I think you win a YouTube Music Award off of it.
Yes, I did.
It was a big deal.
I forgot about it. Yes, it was.
It's like one of the biggest covers of the year.
Yeah, it was crazy how big that song went, our cover of it went, because I don't think any of us really expected it. And, we were kind of in our exploding stage as each one of us on YouTube at the time. We weren't, so it was a cool surprise.
It was you and Pentatonics.
Yes.
Beautiful collaboration. When you break down Radioactive to cover, is there a process there? Like, what are you listening for? Are you listening for what parts the violin can replace, or how the violin can heighten what's already being done?
That one was kind of a heightening thing, because it was really interesting being a part. I've done it a couple times where I've collaborated with a cappella artists or groups, and it's interesting because there's no, like, orchestration to wind through. It's almost like a backwards process. Usually there's tons of instruments, and then there's, like, a voice. And, a lot of times the violin kind of is almost like a duet with a voice. Suddenly there's tons of voices, and the violin is the different thing. And so it wasn't about, how do I stick out amongst all these instrumentations? It was, how do I blend with all these voices? It was more about blending, and I wanted to be like the sixth member of Pentatonics rather than, something else.
Cool. How many times do you listen to a song like that before you get it perfect?
Lots. And then, before a song comes to the world, but by the time I've written on it, worked on the backtracks, and then the mixes and the masters, and then edited the videos for it.
Oh, it takes months. Years.
I could sing the song backwards, probably. Not really.
Go
I was
for
just
it.
gonna say, not really.
Right now.
Actually, I don't know if I could.
Well, so even when you're doing, like, dance music, because I was listening to all of your albums, every song, every album is so different. But does it start with these beats that you put together? Does it start with the violin? Like if you, I want to like Crystallize, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great record. Does
Thank
it
you.
start with the violin or does it start with something different?
You know, back in the day, like when I wrote Crystallize, I would work with this producer. It was one producer that did almost that entire album. And I would literally sit behind him as he like worked on the computer on those tracks for hours. And I would, you know, make suggestions and say, oh, let's make this more like this. And make this louder. I would just sit there and like kind of produce where he was my hands. And then I would take the tracks home once they were 100% done. And I would like Crystallize. I've never spent so long writing a song. I just could not find the right melody because it did feel like something really special and nothing I made up felt good enough for it. And so I almost threw the song away so many times because I was like, the violin doesn't fit in this. I cannot make it work. But I'd already paid for it because back then I would pay this producer before we even started a song. And so I had already spent money on this track and I could not afford to not use it. And so I kept pulling it out of my little trash can and sitting with it. So it took me like 2 months to come up with a melody for that song. But yeah, I used to just completely finish the backtracks and then write the violin.
Wow. I mean, that seems really challenging.
Right. It was interesting to try to make my violin fit into something that we'd already created, and I never even tried to play it until it was done.
Rather than like not make the backing track fit the violin.
Right.
Because
it was
you and the violin are the star.
Why, thank you. And, you know, to this day, I still like to be inspired by something when I'm writing. So very few times have I ever written, like sometimes the piano, like I'll write with a pianist or a guitar player. But a lot of times I like the mood, and the mood that is created by the sounds is so important to me, especially because there's no lyrics on a lot of them. And so the sonics of it have to speak. They have to make you feel something. Even before the violin comes in, you're supposed to feel something, and that inspires my melody. So to this day, a lot of times I at least start the tracks before I write the melodies.
Wow. I mean, it's really cool. Like it's really cool to see the potential of one instrument that I think the world has defined one way. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like everybody looks at the violin in 2 or 3 different ways. None of those ways incorporate any sort of dance music, any sort of tour that's alongside Evanescence. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, my peeps.
Like that, you've kind of changed the definition of an entire instrument, which is pretty sweet.
Oh, thank you.
You did a song with Evanescence,
Yeah.
High Low.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what is that process like, and how does it start? Do you go to them? Do they go to you? And same thing, do you go in blank slate into that studio?
Well, actually, I never even got to meet Amy before I recorded on that song. And I have been a huge Evanescence fan since I was like 15. And so I'd actually written songs in the past where I specifically wrote them for Amy Lee to sing.
That's awesome.
And at the time she was like, oh, on maternity leave or something, like she wasn't able to do it. Or also I was not a big artist yet. And so it was really cool when then years later, like in my inbox lands, hey, do you want to work with Evanescence? They've reached out to see if you would be on their song. And I'm like, yes. Oh my gosh, it was like this full circle moment. And then from that, you know, I recorded, basically they sent me a song with this empty space in the bridge. And they were like, in her words, we talked on the phone and she's like, I want you to just shred. From Amy Lee. She wanted me to shred on this song. And I was like, done. And so I got to just make a shred violin solo the same way a guitar player would approach a shredding solo, which was really cool. It's backed by full orchestration. And then from that song, we then got to tour together because it had such a good reaction from our fans. And the tour was so fun. It was kind of a dream come true for me to be able to not only work with Amy, but to then tour with her and get to know her. We're like friends now.
It's cool.
What do you learn from creating a record like that?
I mean, I think there's always this balance of, you know, what would I do for myself, but what would I also do for what sounds like Amy? Like when I'm writing for myself, it's so much, what would Lindsey do? What would my fans like? What makes me feel like a pixie that would dance across the stage? You know, that's what I'm thinking of. Or what would inspire a music video? But writing for someone else, you have to put yourself in, you know, like I probably should have worn this outfit when I went to the studio. You know, being like, what would Amy Lee do? What makes this album sound like her and me? So it's always kind of a fun challenge to like put yourself into somebody else's shoes for them.
When they give you that open spot in the song, do you actually write it or you kind of just freestyle it and see where it goes?
I am a freestyler. I'll just like start jamming and playing, and then I'm like, oh, that was cool, and I like stop it and I like try to remember what I just played, because I try to just like put on the headphones extra loud and just jam until like, and I play tons of terrible stuff until all of a sudden these really cool melodies start to like rise to the top, and I start to find new themes that I love. And then my sister's actually a musician as well, really good musician, and so she'll annotate all my music for me so that then I can put it on my website for kids to learn and play.
Oh, that's cool.
That is
I like
really
that.
cool. And also, like, you don't have to do it. Because
And I
that
don't have
sounds
to do it.
really hard.
It's very time consuming to like pen to paper all those notes and
I'm
the
sure.
annotation and the articulations of it. But I remember as a kid, there was like nothing cool for the violin to play. And so it was always really important to me. Like as soon as I release an album, like even prior to that, we're working on the annotated music. And at least by the time a music video drops, I like to have the sheet music available with like backing tracks. And I love it when I see kids at their talent shows playing like,
Oh my God.
Crystallize or something
Yeah.
with this cool electronic backing track. And I'm like, yes, like I would have died to feel like orchestra's not cool when you're a kid. And I was like, I would have died to have had that when I was like a teenager or even, a kid, to be able to play something that was fun and energetic.
Rock and roll, bro.
Rock and roll, yeah.
You made the violin rock and roll.
Did you get a lot of band camp jokes when you were growing up?
Yes. Well, especially because I was a special child. I was in a band and orchestra, played the flute. And so I was a band nerd and an orc dork. I
Orc dork. I've never heard that.
Oh, well, it was prevalent where I came from.
I like it. I mean, I don't. It's mean, but it's funny.
But, now I'm proud of it. I'm like, I'm an orc dork. What can I say?
Yeah.
What's been the hardest part about playing the violin?
Hardest part, I would say one of the hardest parts of playing the violin, like, other than just the skill of it, I mean, especially what I do in dancing and playing, it's really not easy. It takes a ton of, and it's something that it never gets easy. For example, when I'm on tour, I still practice quite a bit. And before every show, I need to like really get in my zone. I don't think it will ever be a casual experience to walk on a stage because it takes so much. Even at the end of a tour, after I've done a show 50 times, I still have to walk out there really thinking and really being in my zone because, like I said, it's really difficult to keep good intonation and to, do choreography and pirouettes. And so I don't think it will ever be easy for me. And I think it's kind of cool in a way that I really have to work hard on a consistent basis to keep up with what I want to be.
Have you ever thought about going to like a track?
Playing to a track?
Yeah.
You know what? I just, it's part of like, I don't know, I pride myself in the fact of I play live.
You
And
can do both.
Yeah, I could. But
No, you could do both. I mean, like dancing and playing. You can do it.
And I want that. I don't, because it would be so easy to mime it. It's like anybody could pretend to play the violin and dance. But the fact that I think most people can tell it's live. And also, I mean, there's too many things that can go wrong. I've dropped bows before mid-show, and I'm like, oh gosh, I'd be mortified if my fans realized, oh my gosh, she's playing to track. Like if I dropped my bow and then it kept going. Like,
Oh my God.
like
You have an Ashley Simpson.
having an Ashley Simpson
Do a little jig. We'll run off stage.
right? But I mean, also, it's mostly just people come, and pay money to see me play and dance. And so I always want to give that to them.
But there's a lot of artists that I know, they use the excuse that they dance as to why they use tracks, right? They
That's
can't
true.
like keep their breath or whatever.
How well do you have to know a song before you start putting dance moves to it?
It has to be muscle memory. Like I cannot think about. So I always practice the music first so well that I don't have to think about it, and I can play it with my eyes closed or sleeping. Of course, I can play with my eyes closed. But yeah, I have to be able to play it in my sleep, and then I learn the choreography without the violin. So I go to choreography practice with my dancers, like we're doing that right now, and no violin. I just like hold my arms as if I'm playing and learn all the choreo. And then on my own, in front of nobody, I've never done this in front of everybody. I like to just really slowly start to integrate the two. And they start out as two very separate parts of my brain. And slowly they become one. And it's actually really interesting to like feel it happen as suddenly the dance moves are connected. Like my feet are connected to like my arms in a weird way. And then it's almost weird to separate them.
So when you're on stage, are you thinking like focusing on the music, the dancing, or both together?
It switches. If I'm like in the middle, usually the dance becomes so muscle memory, but things like balance at moments when I really have to keep my balance, or it's like a turn that's hard to come out of. I all of a sudden all my focus goes to my body and holding my core. and then all of a sudden I'll hear a note that's out of tune and I switch back. It's like, whoa, we're off. And then I've got to switch into playing mode.
Do you have in-ears in?
Thank heavens, yes.
Yeah, so you hear everything. How long does it take before a piece of music becomes muscle memory for your fingers?
It just depends. Because I write them all, but then you record them in the studio and then you don't see them for a while. And so then it's like, oh, we're preparing for tour. I need to remember these all again. And so it's just, I would say a couple days of practicing something will get it to where it's really solid.
It's crazy to wrap my brain around because it looks beautiful on stage, but it really is two totally different things coming together that takes real physical balance and mental balance.
Absolutely, yes.
What do your parents think? Like when they...
Yeah, they're so proud.
I mean, this is their lessons and their money paying off times a trillion.
Yeah, my mom comes out to like multiple shows every tour. She'll stay on the tour bus with us and she's so incredibly proud. She's proud of all of her kids. But I know that just like you said, she paid for these lessons, made those sacrifices. And, and my father passed away a few years ago, but I feel him really strongly sometimes, especially there were a couple shows on our last tour where I just felt like my dad was there with me, especially my hometown shows. Probably one of the strongest times I've ever felt like my dad is literally with me right now. And that's really cool that doing my passion brings me closer to my dad.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You really, I mean, you can ask for a few other things, but it's really nice.
Yeah,
it's beautiful, and to know that your family is all supportive. Like your sister still works with you.
Yeah, my family's so supportive and always has been. My sister, she does a lot. She does all my transcribing of my music and my website. She helps me with. My other sister, I wrote my book with. And, so in different ways, my family's been involved in different parts of my journey, and it's really cool.
And you run your own business, which is crazy.
Do my best.
It's your boss lady.
It's nuts. I mean, you are an independent artist. You do it all.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's a rarity.
And, now that I've done it that way, I cannot imagine doing it any other way. Like when I work with, or just even my friends that are artists and hearing about how their relationship is with a label and the things the label can decide for. I'm just like, oh, no, I don't think I could. I mean, yeah.
Do you prefer songs with lyrics or just your violin?
I mean, I'll always probably be an instrumentalist at heart. I love instrumental music. But at the same time, it is fun to like switch it up every once in a while. I thought there was a really good balance on this Christmas album of there's lyrics on a couple songs, some of which I even ended up singing just because I ended up liking the demo. I sang the demo because I was there writing the song, and I'm like, actually, I sound pretty darn good.
Okay.
All right. But so it was really fun to do that and get to, because also performing, I can look at the audience and I can smile at them as I play, but when you're singing and you get to like, just the simple act of being able to point right at someone and like say something to them, there's a little bit of extra connection that happens there, which it's just different from being behind an instrument versus using your own voice. Just yeah.
I guess you can't play the violin and sing at the same time, can you?
You can, right? But it's harder.
I guess
it's way
you
harder.
could. It's another one of those just learn. I can't. I've not practiced that skill enough to be able to do it. So I can't do that. But on a couple of these songs, I go back and forth between like a violin, then I sing.
Oh,
a violin, then I sing.
Use your chin to hold it too, so it's probably hard.
Yeah, so it's a little odd to be like, I mean, it's just probably looks really awkward. As awkward as I looked when I started dancing and playing.
Do lyrics come easy to you, or is that a challenge?
Like writing them?
Yeah.
I always bring on someone to help me, for sure. I don't think I'm the most amazing lyricist. I do think I have really fun concepts for songs, or really like deep concepts. I'm really good at coming up with like stories I want to tell, analogies that I feel like should be in the song, or just things to say. And then I love having someone there to kind of help me say them in a better way. Especially people will say things like, that doesn't sing well. Wait, what do you mean? Like, not everything, they're like, that word, that's a funny word to sing. And I'd be like, I never would have thought of that. The same way I'm like, that doesn't play well on a violin. Well, yeah, of course. Certain things don't sound good when you try to sing them. You can say them. But so it's been a really cool process to do a lot more writing of lyrics and learning all of these things.
And we briefly touched on this, but if we just put on a random song now and you had your violin, how easy is it for you to just play along?
Pretty easy. There's only a few keys that I'm like, oh no, it's in the death key. Like there's some keys that are terrible for a violin. But if it's, as long as it's not one of those two keys, I could probably play along just fine.
So putting a violin to these Christmas songs, did that come easy?
I would say this is my favorite album I've ever worked on. Just the process of writing it, because it wasn't like starting from scratch. It was taking songs that I love and again, finding melodies that sang well on the violin. But the challenge was with this one, like Silent Night has been done how many times?
Trillion
times. Carol of the Bells, how many times? And so finding a way to make it sound fresh and new and also very much like me. And I never just want to regurgitate a melody like, oh, the melody is jingle bells, jingle bells. I don't want to play that exact melody. I want it to sound to every listener like this is jingle bells, but wow, I dance all over on the violin. So it's interesting to find the perfect balance between making it sound fun and original and very much like me so that you don't even realize that the melody is everywhere. All you hear in your head is that familiar tune.
Is that a challenge for you to do?
It's a challenge, but it's also something I feel like is something I'm really good at, is I've been arranging things since I was a kid. Like I would arrange my own versions of hymns to play at church. And so it's something that I've practiced since I was a child and something I really enjoy doing, which is why I think this was one of my favorite albums I've gotten to work on.
Why was that something you were able to do so young? Doesn't that take like a real knowledge of not just like music, but like how to write music and rearrange chords, right?
Well, I was blessed with a curse when I was a child. I have a form of dyslexia, and it makes it so I have a really hard time reading music, even not only words on pages, but I was a terrible sight reader. And at first my teachers just thought I wasn't good at theory, but no matter what I did, I could not sight read. And so as a child, I would cheat before my lessons and I would listen to the songs. We had these tapes of all the songs that I was supposed to learn. And I became so good at listening to them before my lessons and then being able to go in there and play it for my teachers. And they thought I was reading the music, but I wasn't. And so I think just this skill of using my ear versus my eyes, like it's amazing, like the things that maybe handicap you in a way in life can be it turned out to be one of my greatest abilities, is the fact that it made me a great, player by ear.
I mean, that's one of the greatest talents in music for somebody to have. It's like perfect pitch and then being able to listen to something and then play it right back.
And improvisation comes from that, being able to hear something and think, well, how can I fit into this? Like, what key is this in? I don't have to be told a key. I can just hear it and be like, oh, I know where to put my hands.
Well, how has religion affected your music? Like, has it inspired your work? Because I was doing some research on you, and you dedicated time, and you joined a missionary, and you went to New York City, which I thought was really cool. And it was in the middle of college.
Right. Yeah. I took off a year and a half in the middle of college, devoted that entire time to go and, share service and to share my beliefs with people in the beautiful city of New York.
Which really, I don't know.
It's a really tough place. Tough place to be a missionary. But at the same time, in one way, it gave me a really thick skin. I always joke that it was easy to jump into the music industry after that and be, face rejection. Like you have to face and pick yourself up again. Because I was like, heck, I just spent a year and a half being told that people don't want to listen to what I have to say. Going door to door, talking to people on the street, being spit on, like literally spit on multiple times, or yelled at. People, I don't know. It was a very interesting experience. It taught me a lot just about myself and about the joy that comes through service and giving. But also gave me a thick skin. And I would say my beliefs, my faith adds so much to my music because, a lot of the music I write comes from a place of spirituality. Like it's about, sometimes overcoming things, or it's about reaching for something greater than yourself. And, it's instrumental music most of the time, so no one would know that that's what it means to me. But those sounds and those melodies and the way that they reach the top, to me, it's a sense of reaching for spirituality. And I think that that's why it inspires these emotions that the songs create.
That's beautiful. Would creating hymns or adding layers to hymns be in your future ever, or like a Christian album? Tori Kelly just did one. It's beautiful.
Yes, and I love Tori Kelly.
She's the best person.
She is the best. I'm not sure if I'd ever do because I kind of like, I don't know, casting a specific net, but also a wide net. I don't know if this album would sound any more spiritual if it was a religious album. Because to me, they're all kind of like, the idea of being brave enough was all based upon my beliefs of, after I'd gone through loss and wanting to feel connected to my father and my best friend who had passed away. And to me, that's all spirituality and faith-based. And so even if it was a pretty spiritual album, it just came under it was wearing a different dress, And so I think if I made just a Christian-based album, it would make it so that a lot of my fans might not connect with something that I would have written anyway.
I understand that.
Yeah.
And it's supported within the themes of your songs without saying it is blatantly a religious album.
And even when I'm on tour, I mean, I'm not afraid to share. I never want to be preachy. I never want to make people think that I'm trying to get you to believe what I believe. But I also think that being authentic is so important. And so when I'm on stage, I'm not afraid to say that I find strength through God, or that I believe that I'll see my family again, or like these themes of faith. I think that they become powerful when you're authentic, and that anyone can draw from that, whether you're atheist or whether you're religious. Like, anyone can draw from like those themes of believing in something greater than yourself and finding strength in that.
Totally get it. You work in the streets of New York City, preaching the word.
Preaching the word.
And people I've watched missionaries in New York City as a bystander get attacked, so I can only imagine the stories you have.
Some good stories, you know?
Yeah, spit right in the face.
I
But
did.
you really could do anything. You can get up on any stage after that.
It's true. And I'm very grateful for those experiences. And like, they taught me so many things. And I would, it's a time of my life that was one of the hardest things I've ever done. It's really hard to leave everything behind. And I mean, literally, you can't call home. You can write a letter once a week home to your family, and you can get mail once a week. But like, other than that, you're not working, you're not doing anything else. You've saved up to go, and you are there. And it was the most selfless thing I've ever done. And, yeah, I will be forever grateful for that experience.
Rewarding?
Very rewarding. I mean, it taught me so many things. And also, I mean, in a spiritual sense, I feel like, it's like I gave up a year and a half of my life to go out there and to share this message of hope and love and spirituality. And when I came home from my mission is when I became obsessed with music. And it's when all of a sudden I started to pursue music. And I feel like it's almost like my heart was then ready for this gift that God had given me. And it was like, okay, you've served, you gave up something for me, and I'm going to bless you 100-fold. And I really feel like those little sacrifices we make for our beliefs, no matter what it is, I think that whether it's karma or whether it's actually God blessing you, I think that we can all agree that it comes back to you tenfold.
Truth. You get what you give out, right?
Yeah.
Lindsey Stirling.
I have a question.
Warmer in the Winter is the album. Check it out.
What kind of violin do you use?
I use several different kinds. I have a lot of Yamaha violins. Those are my electrics, and I bedazzle them, and I make them really sparkly and pretty for stage, and some of them glow in the dark, like just,
cool.
Yeah, it's fun. For tours, some of them are very showy. But my baby violin, it's a 100-year-old violin. It's a German-made Roth violin.
Ooh, sounds fancy.
I know.
I don't know what it means, but it sounds fancy.
Yeah, I don't know anything about violins. I just felt like it was important to ask.
Yeah,
and we
well,
learned something cool.
The cool thing about violins is they are like a fine wine. They get better with age. And so that's why really nice violins are very expensive, is because you cannot they're not in mass production. You can't just go and buy the best violin that was made this week. If you want a great violin, they have these ancient ones that you go to old violin shops, and it's like Harry Potter choosing his wand. It's almost like the violin chooses you.
Ooh.
It's really exciting.
That is
What
fun.
happens over time that makes it sound better? Is it like the way the wood ages?
Yeah, the wood ages, and it gets, it just gets maybe softer, as it ages, and so the sound gets warmer. But yeah, violins sound very bright when they're brand new. Like, the wood is just very bright and crispy, and then as they age, they get more delicate.
It's like soul.
It gets soul, and it probably gets some stories in it. I don't know. It's like a crock pot, it takes on all the flavors they've cooked in it. Maybe the violin takes on a little piece of all the songs that have been played on it. I don't know.
That's cool.
That's also gross. Now I'm going to rethink anything I ever think from a crock pot.
Is there a difference between a violin and a fiddle, or is it the same thing? They just call it different things in different genres.
Yeah, it's like the style in which it's played makes it a fiddle,
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So I guess there's a few songs I have where I guess it's a fiddle, but mostly because I was classically trained, I consider it a violin.
Gotcha. It's just really no difference.
Do you still find playing the violin fun? Like, is it still fun for you?
It's both. It's work sometimes, and sometimes it's frustrating. Like when I'm on tour, sitting in my dressing room by myself, practicing, my intonation and slowly moving through my dressing room. That's not fun. Mm-hmm. But when I get to, record a song that I'm really excited about, or get to perform, that is so fun. Getting able to see all my my little visions and imaginations come to life. It's about the theatricality for me, of obviously so much so, but also just, being able to play this instrument that I've worked so hard my whole life to play. That's fun.
So if you have a friend has a Christmas party or family has a Christmas party, do they just expect you to bring your violin and play?
You know, it's funny. Like, the expectation shows up when I show up. It's like, oh, you're here. Like, did you bring your violin? I'm like, you invited me to a Christmas party. Of course I didn't bring my violin. But like, very few people think about it before I walk in the room. And I think it's hilarious that like people are always like, oh, please tell me you brought your violin. Oh my gosh, it'd be so fun if you played like some Christmas song. Like, do you come to a Christmas party with your stethoscope because you're a doctor? No. Like, anyways.
I feel like that could also be the best wedding gift ever. Like, you don't ever need to buy somebody anything.
Right.
You just show up and play a song, then you leave.
It was funny. I was recently at a really good friend's wedding, and she didn't ask me to play. They had a wedding band and everything. And I said to one of my other like best friends that was at this wedding, I was like, you know, it's kind of nice to be at this wedding, and no one asked me to play. And she's like, oh, that's so nice, but you're gonna play at my wedding.
That's right.
Done.
I was like, well, of course, if you ask, of course I will play at your wedding. I was like, well, I was just saying, it was kind of nice to just be able to enjoy.
Sweet, I'll hit you up when I get married.
There you go. Let me know.
Lindsey Stirling, Warmer in the Winter, that is the record. It is a re-release. You added 5 new songs?
Yes, 5 new tracks, some of which are my new favorites on the album, I do have to say.
You have Sabrina Carpenter on one. You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch.
Yes, we just filmed the music video and it will be coming out soon, and it is so much fun.
What are the legalities on using a song like that? Because so many people cover it. Like, do you need to
Right.
get the rights and stuff?
You have to go through some hoops. I can't remember exactly which hoops those are. Thankfully, I have an amazing management, as I mentioned before. So over there, she's laughing at me because they do a ton of work to make sure all of that stuff gets taken care of.
Yeah, the Grinch wants your money, man.
He does. He's a mean one.
He wants to get paid. Like Carol the Bells, that is not a, like I always wonder like Jingle Bell Rock, like everybody's covering these songs. Like
Right.
What does it look like on the back end of these deals? I'm like,
Well, thankfully, the Christmas album, quite a few of those are public domain, like Carol of the Bells,
Get
public
it.
domain. I Saw 3 Ships, Angels We've Heard on High. What Child Is This? A lot of those are public domain. Might have done that slightly on purpose. I honestly love those old songs, though. Like, I Wonder As I Wander is an old Celtic hymn.
Yeah, I don't even know that. I never
And-
heard it.
And I hadn't heard it in years until I happened upon it again. And I was like, these old songs have such haunting melodies.
Yeah.
Like, people don't really write haunting Christmas melodies anymore.
It's funny you say that. I was listening, and some of this reminded me of the Stampede from the Lion King on Broadway soundtrack.
Really?
Which makes sense then. 'Cause that's a very haunting thing.
Yes. Uh-huh.
That
There
makes
you go.
sense.
That specific scene.
were you inspired by music growing up in the church? Like, did that have an impact and like influence on you getting into it or you creating music?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say singing is a big part of, like faith, I feel like.
Yeah.
Just kind of traditionally, and going to church, you always sing hymns and in sacrament meeting, and then the kids go to primary where they sing all these little primary songs. And so music is, I think, a really cool expression of faith, and it's always been traditionally in a lot of faith religions, whether, even if you go way back into some old religions, like even monks, they like do these musical sounds to express their connection to peace and to. So I mean, I think music is a huge part of faith.
I want to play this on the radio.
We're gonna play it right now.
No, hallelujah. No, I'm just fascinated because like it is like when you think of church music, you think of like orchestral, big, but also like soft and really like kind of lightly soulful. Like
Right.
we used to have a violin player come to my church and like it was very impactful. It really was able to tell a story beautifully.
Yeah.
Or heighten a story that was being told really nicely.
Yeah.
It's the violin, the lost art, truth.
Da-da-da-da.
Do you wish more like hip hop and other pop stars would put violin in their music?
Yeah, because then they'd probably call me.
Yeah, right.
Which would be great.
Why aren't people using it more?
Why aren't people using it more? I mean, I think it's just not top of mind when you're making a hip hop song. And also, I think a lot of people rely on like synthesized strings.
Yeah.
So like a lot of hip hop tracks or rap like have these little like synthesized orchestras in them. And so that's become kind of like just a sound that attaches itself to that genre. If you want strings in your rap song, you kind of go to that sound because sound is so important in feeling like a genre, like the way, certain drums are used in hip hop versus pop, and that makes it sound like it's hip hop. So I think it's just been such a thing because that's what was easiest.
Yeah.
And so these little synthesized strings have become part of the sound of some of those things. But I think people are craving more and more or going back to like organic sounding stuff, because it's like you can only go so far in one direction, and then everybody starts to crave like what the realness that music used to have more of. And so I think we're going back to that direction, which is awesome. I think more instrumentation is starting to be put into music that is real.
So no one's reached out.
Not yet.
No one cool that we.
Not at the moment.
Who do you want? Is there a song out there that you've heard and you're like, wow, I could have added something real to this record?
Man, Ed Sheeran had a song about some girl playing a violin in this pub.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And I was like, why didn't you call me Ed? But
Ed.
Yeah, come on. But yeah.
So we'll put that record on the list. Any other songs?
It's a great record.
Yeah.
I forget the name of it though. Celtic.
Played her fiddle in an Irish band.
Oh, Galway Girl.
Yeah, Galway.
There you
Galway
go.
Girl.
That's the record.
There you go.
Which I also think was a cover.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
Galway
was it
Girl's
that?
a thing, yeah.
Didn't know that.
Well, now we all
Well,
learned
now
something.
we all know. Because then you do the fiddle because it's like Celtic.
Yes.
Is that when it's fiddle, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, see?
Any other songs you've heard that you're like, I should be on this, but I'm not?
I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I will say, I think top of my list, the two people I'd like to work with the most. I would love to work with Pink someday, because I love Pink. And
She's fantastic.
she's so cool.
So cool.
If you haven't seen her live, she's the best live performer. Inspired me so much when I was like, I planned my shows, and ever since I saw her first show as like, what would Pink do? She's so amazing.
Talk about somebody who can do 1,000 things at once.
Yeah, right?
She's amazing. She's so strong, but she's like feminine, and she's my hero. And then John Williams.
The composer?
The composer.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Cool.
I
I'm
love
sure.
John Williams. His melodies, like you hear just a few notes of one of his melodies, and all of a sudden you're in Hogwarts. Dun, 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 dun. And like
That's
he
it.
tells stories through music just as strongly as the films do, and I don't know any other composer that can do that. Or like two notes and you're in the sea and there's a shark after you.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Dun,
You just know.
I forgot. Yeah, he did
dun.
Jaws.
Anyways,
It's
he's
so-
genius.
I was listening to to you on Spotify today, and once I made it through your songs, John Williams' stuff showed up right after.
What?
There
We're
you go.
neighbors on Spotify.
No, that's a thing.
Taking down my Spotify white picket fence so that we're going to be closer.
So we have Ed Sheeran out in the universe, John Williams out in the universe, and we have Pink out in the universe.
Yeah.
That's
Those are my
a good
people.
three.
Those are good three. We'll leave it at that.
Let it
Yeah.
marinate. Everybody should listen to the Christmas record. It's technically an album, not a record, but it's Warmer in the Winter.
Yay!
Courtesy of Lindsey Stirling. Sabrina Carpenter's on there. Becky G's on there. Hallelujah. You added that record.
Yeah,
That's a new one.
that's a good one.
Did you sing on it? Or is it just an
That
instrumental?
one's just instrumental, but I Wonder As I Wander. I did sing on that one and
Oh, nice.
Santa Baby.
You sang Santa Baby?
I sang Santa Baby.
I can't wait to listen to
Oh.
it. That's one of my favorite Christmas songs. It's so
Really?
sassy. I love
so
it.
So sassy.
Yeah.
We just filmed the music video for that one, and it's so cute.
I can't wait.
It's one of my cutest videos ever.
I'm excited.
Is that out of your comfort zone, putting your voice on a record?
You know what? It's funny because, again, I sang it in the studio as a demo, and then I was like, actually, I really like the way that my voice suits this song. So I never really got super nervous because it just like kind of happened.
Yeah.
I am terrified to sing that song live on tour. Like, that's a different ball game. Like, I know that there's people listening. This is live. It's not like my comfort zone for sure then,
But you're gonna do it.
Yeah.
but I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
With no violin.
No violin.
Will somebody else play the violin for this song?
Well, there's a little pre-chorus. I'll play that, and then I like hand my violin off to a dancer, and I keep singing, and then
Oh, I'm so excited.
yeah, me too.
Do you do it with that attitude like Madonna does it? Like Santa Baby, like that? Like how do you?
I didn't do it quite as much. You'll have to listen to it.
Oh, you're
It's
right.
actually
Yeah,
a very
right.
different take on Santa Baby. It's but I was really happy with how it came out. It's it's not quite as no, it's sassy still. I don't know. You'll just have to listen to it. I don't know how to describe it.
Oh, listen, you're right.
When
But
does
it's a
the-
fun one.
Yeah.
When does the Christmas tour kick off? Soon.
The day after Thanksgiving.
Here we go.
Sweet.
Eat your turkey and then come see the show.
Warmer in the Winter, that is the album. Lindsey Stirling, we thank you so much for hanging out.
Thank you for having
Appreciate
me.
you and your
guys are
violin.
delightful.
You are
Thanks.
delightful.
Thanks for hanging. Lindsey Stirling, everybody.
Thank
Woo!
I really hope you enjoyed that conversation. If you did, please subscribe and also check out our podcast. There's a link in the description, and also comment and like and do things. Other interviews are on the screen somewhere, so click them. Thanks for watching.